The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, it's Jamie here, and if you are waiting for the Connect365 Script Writing Bootcamp, then you're in the right place. So we're going to get started in just a few minutes, just to make sure everyone has time and is able to join and log in, and make sure everyone's computer is working. So if you can hear me and you can see my screen, let me know in the chat. But for now, I'm going to go grab a drink of water, and we're going to get started in about 1 minute. Okay, great. Well, it looks like everyone can hear me and see my screen, so I think we're ready to get started. Okay, so just first, a few housekeeping items. So just to let you know, we will be recording this, and we will plan on sending a replay out either later on today or tomorrow, just depending on how quickly we can get it up to the site. And we also will welcome any questions. So go ahead and feel free to put them in the chat, and we will get to them at the end of the session. And so remember, if you could stick to only questions pertaining to script writing, that would be greatly appreciated. Any other questions can be directed to the Facebook group or email us at connectcare@linkeduniversity.com. Okay, so before we get started on the critiques, I want to take a moment and do a quick intro of myself and my esteemed colleague. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jamie Kraft. I'm the program director at Link University, among a few other things. And on the call with me today is the omnipresent and effervescent Pat Hensler. Hey Pat, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. That was awesome. That was like a little poem you had about me. You called me esteemed, effervescent, omnipresent. I'm gonna have to redo my LinkedIn headline and include those descriptors. So yeah, super excited to be here today and go over some of these scripts that people have sent in, give you some of Jamie's and mine feedback. Like she said, I'm going to be in the chat here for a while as we're going through. Once we get to the critiques, Jamie and I will both be kind of hopping in and sharing some thoughts there. So thanks for having me, Jamie.
Oh, you're very welcome. Glad to be on the call with you. So now, before we jump right into the critique portion of the session, I wanted to lay some foundational framework. So before you can even begin to think about your messaging scripts, you need to make sure that you fully understand your audience and the actual people that you're selling to. So that starts with defining your buyer personas, your ideal customers or clients that you want to work with, and identifying their pain points, their challenges, their motivations, all that fun stuff. And you want to make sure you give that person a face and a name. So that way, when you are writing out your messaging scripts, you can have an actual person in mind that you're writing to. And I'll go into a little more detail on that later on. But from there, you can take those personas and segment them out to create more customized messages based on your persona's interests, pain points, motivations. So not all messages are created equal. So a message that may be of interest to one persona or one segment of your audience might not be of interest to another persona or segment. And so you need to make these messages to be as engaging as possible if you want to convert. So sometimes a one-size-fits-all message may not work. Now, in some cases it may, but not all the time. So we do go in depth on this in Module 1 in Connect365. So if you haven't gotten a chance to look over it, I would highly suggest that you do so. So even if you've already done some of the foundation building or optimization in our other programs like Link to You or Tag, I still think you should go and check some of these, the first couple modules out, because there are some new points that we touch on that we don't touch on in the other programs. So once that is all said and done, you can focus on the actual scripts. So I'm going to go over a few tips now on how to make sure your scripts are as awesome as possible. So first off, all messages you send need to have a purpose. You don't want to be sending out messages just for the heck of it. That's a waste of everyone's time. So that's why you always need to explain why you're reaching out. And when you do that, you need to remember that these messages are not about you. None of this is actually about you. The messages, the whole point of this is about your prospects. So the messages you're sending need to focus on their needs, their pain points. What are they interested in? Because immediately your prospect is going to open up your message and immediately going to ask themselves what's in it for them. So that's why you need to make your presence known, and by showing the value up front, and be as compelling and engaging as possible. So you don't just want to be sending out messages that are essentially a list of features about you or your product or services. You need to properly explain the benefits that they will get when they read these messages. Because the benefits that you're explaining persuade them. Just a list of features or why you should be reading this is not engaging. And then you want to be as specific as possible. So being overly general and vague will just turn your prospects off. So you could be saying like specific numbers or specific results or the specific outcome that they can get by reading your message. So the point is you want to make your scripts explain how you can help your audience and why they should care. And so whether you want to admit it or not, when it comes to making purchases, people are heavily influenced by their emotions. So whether it's you're just buying a candy bar that reminds you of spending time with your grandpa as a child, or you buy a huge new diesel truck to fill you up with a bit of testosterone when you drive it. So whatever the reason you're buying is, people make purchases based on how that product or service makes them feel. They buy it based on their emotions. So your scripts need to do the same. And you can do that by making your prospects feel like they belong. So we all want to feel liked and like we're part of some community. And also that someone cares. So by focusing on their needs, as I mentioned before, this is kind of the theme throughout. Remember, all of these messages, all of this whole point is to focus on your audience. It's about them. So focus on their needs, their pain points. Use the word you. You don't want to say I throughout the message. Use the word you as if you're talking directly to them. Sharing personal experiences that show that you're relatable. That, hey, I'm just like one of you. We're the same. We belong together. And then also you want to make your message feel personalized and exclusive. Not only do people want to feel like they are part of a group, but it's even better if that group or community is exclusive exclusive. So exclusive offers, insider tips. Hey, I'm sharing this with you because you're one of the top dogs in your industry. And I'm only sharing this with just a few people who I know that will get benefit out of it. You know, making them feel exclusive, making them feel special. And then also at times, now, and this won't apply to all messages, but you also want to create a sense of urgency in those messages. So make the offer compelling enough to make them want to take next steps. Remember, the best scripts increase the emotional appeal and create that desire in their audience for what they're selling. And then finally, you want to be relatable and conversational. So in order to do that, you need to write as if you're speaking to your prospect. Having a real person in mind when you're writing these messages out helps, because you're writing to a person, not just some bullet points on a page of some characteristics of a person. And also reading it aloud helps. So after you write your message or write a draft, read it aloud and say, hey, does this sound as if I'm actually speaking to someone and not just like I'm writing some words? Does it sound like a conversation? And then you want to use simple language. Make it easy to understand, easy for your prospects to understand, not too technical or jargony. Use the keywords that they use. Use the language that they use as well. Again, that creates the relatability, the conversation, so the person isn't overly confused. It's like, hey, I know this person. I can talk to this person. And then you also don't want to make these messages too long. Short, simple paragraphs, short sentences. Make sure it's easy on the eyes. So you don't just want to have huge chunks of text. And then also you never want to send out anything without proofreading. Having errors in your messages is it's pretty hard to recover from. And so with your the proofreading doesn't have to be done by yourself. You definitely do want to always look over it, but it also might be beneficial to have someone else on your team look over it, just to make sure, not only that there are no errors of spelling or grammar, but also that it makes sense and that it is compelling. Because if your colleague reads it and they're like, oh my God, I'm bored out of my mind, then okay, there's a sign that maybe your prospects will feel the same way. So either way, make sure you're planning, or make sure you proofread it all out. And then also you want to make sure that you're planning out time to write and also have an editorial calendar set up so that all your messages are scheduled in advance. So this will help not only with the entire process of making sure you're sending out messages when you should be and keeping you on track and holding you accountable, but it also helps with the flow of conversation. So the messages you are sending out actually make sense and you sound like you're having a conversation, not just, hey, 1 month I'm sending you this message and the next month I'm sending you a completely different message that doesn't make sense. It may not even be interesting to you, or it may be just so similar to the last message. If you're sending out the same types of messages each month, that's not conversational, that's not relatable, that's not engaging. So having it all planned out, from setting specific time to write it down to scheduling out messages in advance, is super important, because remember, your audience wants to have a conversation with you. And again, these messages are all about them, not you. Okay, so that is all I have to say about that. Pat, did we have any questions before we get on into the critique?
Yeah, one I just wanted to bring up, Raj was asking, he hasn't had time to send in his messaging scripts for critique yet, and he was asking if he could send them after the call. So, yeah, definitely. If someone on this call right now has a script and we have time at the end, you can put it in the chat, and we can try to get to it then. Otherwise, my advice is to put that script into that implementation group on Facebook, and we're happy, either Jamie, myself, or any of the other coaches on our team are happy to hop in there and give you some feedback. One thing I just wanted to say as we get into this, Jamie, obviously our goal here is with these critiques is we want to be constructive in all of these. So even if there's something we say that we're suggesting some tweaks, our entire goal is to make sure your scripts are getting you the most return, getting you more engaged with your audience. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're clear with that nothing we say here is going to be, we're not going to be too harsh, but we want to make sure that you're getting the right information, able to get the most success. So I don't have anything else to add there, Jamie. If you're ready to go, let's go ahead and hop into it.
Yeah, and I'll just add something on that. Yeah, and as you can see from kind of the tips I've given, and probably throughout this whole training, I make mention of that there's no one right way to do this. There's not one exact formula to follow that says, okay, this is how you create scripts that people actually give a shit about. So that is important to keep in mind, is that all of this, it's completely subjective, and it is all about doing what makes sense for you. So if we give you some suggestions and you're like, actually, I think my audience would hate that, you know your audience better than I do. So, and we might just give you some ideas that you're like, I don't like that, but actually I can change it to this. So it's all kind of a fluid process, and you should always be testing your scripts and seeing which ones perform better than others. So there's never, ever really a final script. It's all kind of a work in progress. And then also I wanted to mention about what Raj said. We will be holding another boot camp later on in the year, because as you guys know, this is the pilot launch that we had for you guys, and so we're getting ready to do another launch, and we're not sure when that will be. We realize that a lot of people have been busy to get their scripts in, so later on in the year we will be having another boot camp for script writing, and you guys will certainly be invited and more than welcome to send in any other scripts then as well. So, okay, are we ready to get started?
I think so, Jamie.
Okay. So this is the first message. Pat, should we read it out loud, or should we give time for people to?
Something like this we can probably read out loud. This one's pretty short and sweet. There's a couple in here that are a bit longer that will probably be better off just giving people some time to read through. But I'll go ahead and read this one. So, hi James, welcome to my business network. Most of my connections are from the IT industry in Victoria. Given the world now being a village, one never knows if another's connections can be of value. A gold nugget may be hidden deep underground, but worth stumbling over. Have a great week. Regards, Gail.
Okay, so first off, I just want to mention that I think this, obviously this is a thanks for connecting message, and I think it really does a great job of setting themselves apart from just, hey, thanks for connecting, looking forward to keeping in touch. What I do worry about is the line, most of my connections are from the IT industry in Victoria. So you should only send that message to people in the IT industry in Victoria. If you're sending that message to someone else who's not in the IT industry in Victoria, that might turn them off. Pat, did you have anything?
Yeah, so I got a couple thoughts on this one. Personally, it's not my style, so that doesn't mean it's a wrong thing. As far as it's not written how I would talk, like that section you were talking about, Jamie, or write like your talk. I think that is one of the most important items that really we can focus on, because most times when we have a new student that we're working with scripts on, or a new client we're working with scripts on, or even a new account manager on our internal agency where, they're writing their first kinds of scripts, most often the thing I see is people don't write like they would talk to someone. And, some of this comes from this quote in the second part. Now, again, it's not a bad thing. I actually think the quote you have there gives it some personality, which can definitely help it stick out to people. Again, like Jamie said, it's kind of knowing your industry and your targets there. It's just, for me, I usually like for a message where I'm talking to a new connection to have something pretty short and sweet, basically thanking them for connecting, telling them I'm looking forward to staying in touch, and then, having a closing. And sometimes I'll add in there maybe a invite to join my group if I have a group on LinkedIn, or, some other short call to action. My other thoughts is that welcome to my business network. That line to me sounds a little too formal, and when I read it, it sounded a bit strange to me if I was a new connection on the site. I might just say something like, oh, hi, James, thanks for connecting. I've got a lot of friends and connections in the IT industry in Victoria, or you could even just say like in the area if that's where you're located, and I'm looking forward to keeping in touch. And then if you want to have that second paragraph in there, like I said, it's not my style, but there's nothing wrong with it that I see. I think, like I mentioned, it gives some personality and will stick out a bit more to people. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. Again, this is a pretty short and sweet one. That's really what I like with regards to any sort of message like this, where you're welcoming new people into and thanking them for connecting with you.
Yeah, I agree. With it kind of being not exactly my style, but I do like that quote in there. It was, when I read it, I was like, oh, I've just never even seen that done before. So it's good to always see like new things people are trying that we necessarily haven't thought of. But yeah, I think definitely the first paragraph is a little stiff, and it doesn't read. I would find it hard to believe that Gail actually talks like that as well. So if you can just loosen it up a bit, just make it seem a little more conversational, that would be really beneficial. And then also, though it does have some personality, it still seems a little formal and dry. So I think even just adding, instead of have a great week, instead of just the period, have an exclamation mark. And you don't want to go overboard with an exclamation mark, but just having that there, or just sporadically having an exclamation mark, or even like a question mark, when it's appropriate, just helps break it up and makes, even just when you're looking at the message, it just makes it seem like it has a little more personality, and then you're actually excited and looking forward to connecting with this person. So I think that is strategically using exclamation points and question marks in your messaging definitely helps.
Yeah, and Jamie, someone wrote a question in the chat real quick asking if this is an invite to connect or after they had accepted. The way I was reading it, I think you might have some better insight since you were pulling down these scripts. This was to someone after. This is a message to new connections, not something that's, asking someone to connect.
Yeah, this is one for after the person has connected, yeah. Mm-hmm. But you could easily see if you wanted to, you could use this type of message for the connection request as well. Obviously, I think you'd have to change the first line a bit. Press. Again, we want to explain the reason why we're reaching out. And maybe this is what this script could do a little better. It doesn't really explain why they're reaching out. So if in the first paragraph they could explain why they're reaching out, if it's either A, connection request, or B, a thanks for connecting, they could do a better job of explaining that. But in this case, it is a thanks for connecting message. So yeah, anything else to add, Pat?
I think the main points I wanted to hit, I hit just a bit ago. Again, the thing that I like most about it is definitely it's short and sweet, and no paragraphs over 2 sentences even in this. So yeah, I think I got out what I wanted to say. If you got anything else, otherwise, ready to move on to number 2.
Okay, yeah. Darn. Okay, we'll just take a quick moment. Pat, did you want to read this out loud, or you don't have to?
Yeah, I think we can probably just give it a minute or two here so some people can read through it, and then you and I can jump in with our thoughts. All right. So I'll kick things off here, Jamie. I got a couple of things that I wanted to mention about this. The first thing to me that jumped out is that the title of that article is pretty long and seems like a strange way that I would say that to someone else. If it were me, I'd probably tweak it a bit to say, I want to take a quick moment to share with you a recent article I came across on challenges that are reshaping the insurance industry or something like that. And then you could have that line that says that explains some key challenges, or something that is explaining what the article is about more than saying, I have this article called the 2016-2020 Technology Challenges Reshaping the Insurance Industry, what they are and how to prepare. That's a very long and formal title, and the way it kind of gets back to this idea we were talking about earlier of writing like you talk. I wanted to share a quote that I've given to a bunch of people on our team and some other people in our programs that, for me, helps sum it up. And it's from, if anyone out there is familiar with John Carlton, he's a copywriter. And the way he explains it is, before you sit down to write, you should imagine that you're sitting at a bar talking to a close friend of yours about, if it's a survey, about a survey that you're inviting people to take, or this article, for this instance, that you're going to invite people to read. And while you're talking to that friend, a stranger comes up, hits you on the shoulder, and says, I overheard what you were saying, and could I hear a little bit more about what you're talking about? So in this instance, you turn to that new friend, that new stranger, and you tell them about it. And whatever that is that you'd say to that stranger at the bar who's interested in what you're talking about to your friend, that's exactly how you should try and focus on writing your copy. And the end goal being to write it as if you're at a bar yakking it up with someone about something they're interested in. Like Jamie, like you were mentioning earlier, everyone here knows their audience and industry and their product more than we do, because we're outside, we're not in your business each day. So you might need to adjust for tone based on that, but you don't. I just always caution people, you don't need to fall into a trap of thinking that your audience or industry is all about formal communication only. And the reason that story of, like, if you're sitting in the bar talking to your friend and the stranger comes up is a good example, for me at least, is that if it was a lawyer, a banker, a doctor sitting at the bar talking to you there, you'd probably be talking to them pretty similar to the way you would to a teacher or a plumber or a surfer or whoever. So for me, it's something that I've shared with, like I said, a lot of people on our team, and then also some students in different programs that have sometimes come with this. And I think again, that title, while it's not something that this person wrote in this message, it's something that's very long and formal, and I might cut it down to just keep to the important part of what is interesting about this article and sharing that. So aside from that, the other thing that I wanted to point out here, I really like. There's a lot of things that I like about this. This is an article sharing message that is something that we've run a lot of. The other big thing that I would focus on is that third paragraph that says, I think the resource. And Jamie mentioned this earlier about specificity, being specific. if my goal here, my goal for a message like this, if I'm sending this out for myself or a client, is twofold. I want them to read the article because I think that they're going to get something out of it. And two, I want them to start to, I want my prospects to associate me or my client, whoever this message is coming from, with someone who's an authority and expert on these topics. And the line, I think the resource does a great job explaining the technology trends and areas to focus your marketing efforts. I think that can be more specific. To me, that technology trends and areas to focus your marketing efforts on, it's almost like a rewriting of the title. And I might grab some important point from that article or an important, focus that's in the article and not just, the title or in the first intro paragraph. And I want to be specific to what this audience is into. So for this, it sounds like, the target, the student can help his clients who are typically insurance agents or insurance companies with their marketing. So I would call out some specific items so that they're reading that and saying, oh, this guy or this girl really knows her stuff. They mentioned all these specific marketing tactics that are in the article, and they must know what's up with all of them. But again, overall, I like the message. There's just a couple small tweaks as far as what I do with that title, and then also getting a little bit more specific on what's something in that article. And again, when I say specific on what's in the article, that doesn't mean you have to go into the article and grab 3 paragraphs of text. It's more, what is the one nugget of information here, or the one really important stat or item that comes out that you can really allude to and interest your prospects, because the goal here is selling them on the click to this article and selling them on that you know your stuff and you're an expert. So I kind of got a little long-winded there, Jamie, so I'll turn it back over to you and let's see what you had to say about some of this.
Okay, yeah, and not a word. That's okay. I was interested to hear what you had to say. But yeah, everything you touched on was great. And the last thing Pat mentioned was about being specific, like this paragraph right here when he says choose that nugget. That's where you can tap into their emotions. Like pick the one nugget that you think that speaks to you and would speak to them, and explain why you think that they would benefit from that. So not only do you want to be specific, but that's a great place for you to tap into their emotions. Real quick, right here, there is a typo. You can see the love is in capital. The L is capitalized, so that's where proofreading is your friend right there. Not a huge thing, but just me being picky. But yeah, everything Pat said was super insightful. And so then up here in the first paragraph, like he mentioned, it's just you should change the first paragraph to make it a little more compelling. So like what I said about the benefits, emphasize the benefits over the features. Like right now you're just telling me the features. The feature is the name of the article and a brief a bit, and a very vague explanation of what it is. So yeah, not only can you do a better job of showing those benefits, you could also do a better job there of explaining, instead of just some key challenges the insurance industry will face. Well, that's kind of vague too. You could definitely get a little more specific there. And then through the whole thing, especially like the first title, because it is a little formal, reading it aloud will help. Because if you're reading it and you say, I want to take a quick moment to share with you an article entitled, you're like, wow, I've never used the word entitled in my life, unless I'm talking like about an entitled millennial, and that's like a completely different situation. But if you're saying it and it sounds a little funny to you, then again, that's not how you speak. And then what Pat said about talking to the person at the bar next to you, yeah, that person is your buyer persona. So having that face, imagining you're at a bar, having a few drinks with them, and so when you're writing, think of them. That is the persona you need to be thinking about. So overall, it's pretty good.
One thing I wanted to hop in
Yep.
real quick with me. Linda asked a question about this and asking about our response to having 3 paragraphs that begin with I. I kind of go back and forth on this. I'm not opposed to it if it's done in a way that the rest of the focus is on how this is going to help or benefit your audience members. So obviously we talk a lot about focusing on your persona and who you're writing this to. If it's saying, I'd love to hear your thoughts, like a sentence like that is really the focus is on them sharing with you what it is. So I'm not completely opposed to it. I sometimes will, put in a little, there's days where I'm writing a script and I say, I kind of want to switch this up and switch out the I verse there, but I'm not completely, I'm not against having 3 of these. I don't want to have every paragraph start that way or every sentence, but I think the way it's done here, it isn't an issue where it's too bad. I also don't think, again, like I said, if the rest of the focus is on this is something specific to what your audience is interested in and what they're dealing with, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and Linda, very good eye there. Good eye there on finding the eyes, and that is a great point. And I think, Pat, you're completely right. There is a difference between I'd love to hear your thoughts or any questions you may have to, that's okay if you're sending a message that says, this is me. This is about me. Here's my business. This is all about me. I do this. I do that. Okay. I want to set up a call. Let's talk. Like that, there's a difference between making it all about me like that. And I think in this case, this isn't necessarily making the art or the message all about them. In this case, they're using the I to be relatable. Like, hey, this is something I found that I want to share with you. Here are my thoughts. Here's how I think this could help you. So, yeah, there's a slight difference there, but good catch of that and great question. So, okay, anything else to add, Pat?
No, I think I got out what I was looking to say about that one, so I'm ready to move on whenever you are.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, we'll give you guys just another few moments to read this, and then we can get started. Okay, so I think hopefully everyone has gotten a chance to read it. Overall, this is a pretty good message. We do have, it's pretty similar to the template that we send out, so there's nothing like abnormally wrong that stands out that says, oh, yeah, whoa, there's some huge things we can change in here. The only thing is, and I might be a bit biased because I have read messages like this over and over and over, probably a lot more than most people have read these reaching out messages. So to me, it didn't do much to grab my attention. So I'm just worried that a prospect would read this and not even really read what he has to say. Like it doesn't connect with me. It doesn't create really any sense of urgency for me to respond. Even though having the date in here, how does Friday, March 15th, that is a good way to create that sense of urgency. But other than that, I just don't really feel like it is emotionally or compelling enough to really make me want to respond. I think there are things that we can do to really to tweak to make it a little more compelling. Before I'll let Pat have some words to say before we go on.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I really like here. I like the specificity as far as who they've worked with, and like you mentioned, setting a potential date for the call instead of just leaving it open-ended. A couple paragraphs, especially paragraph 2, looks a little long to me format-wise. And the first sentence in that second paragraph sounds really jargony to me. So, that first sentence is also something that could, I think, do with a bit more specificity as far as what that means. And again, it might be partially because it seems like a lot of jargon to me. I'd even something like maybe my company works with businesses like yours to increase your monthly leads by X% using platforms like, and you could say like email, Facebook, LinkedIn, et cetera, whatever. And then Donna mentioned in the chat, which was my next point that I was going to bring up about that line is, that what's in it for me. So customizing it a bit. So if you have a number of different industries you go after, your personas, let's say one of them's manufacturing. You said my company specialists are working with manufacturers like you to increase your monthly leads by X percentage using, platforms like XYZ. Since this is a message where you're trying to get them on the phone, and it's a bit more, it's a little bit more direct. It's not completely it's not just a sales pitch in this message, but it's that first sentence I would rewrite to make it more specific about, what exactly they're going to get out of it, and put it in some terms that to me come across as less jargony and more exact.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also that sentence is 1, 2, 3, 3.5 lines long. So it's a little long to be a sentence. So I think if you can shorten and specific, make it a little more specific it up. That's not a term. Make it a little more specific. That would be beneficial. And then also if you read it out loud, like we've worked with companies like Microsoft, GKIC, and top names like Tony Robbins, Neil Patel, and many others. Again, that's just kind of you're listing the features. Like, it's great that you're mentioning people that you work with, and these are like some big dogs, but also it's just like, okay, you're just listing off people. Like, you need to make it a little more beneficial. Again, like what Donna said, and that was a great question that she asked, what's in it for them? Okay, yeah, and then it says, I think we could have a productive conversation. Would you have a few minutes to chat next week? I feel like it could end a little more, and just, how does Friday, March 15th in the afternoon sound? Like, how about, like that, most people don't talk like that. It's like, how does the afternoon of Friday the 15th sound? I wouldn't necessarily specify March 15th if it's like next week. Like, we know next week is going to be March 15th, so why do you have to say March 15th? Just say, how does the 15th in the afternoon sound, or something like that. And then maybe ending it with a little more personal touch. I think sometimes ending it with that question can be good, but also it could be beneficial if you kind of just bring it all together. Like, hey, look forward to hearing from you. Let's get something on the calendar, something like that. Yeah. So, Pat, back to you.
Yeah, no, I think that's, you had some good points there about the 15th. And the other thing I just want to mention quickly is you just want to be cognizant of how many people you're sending this message out to if you're only putting that one day and afternoon in there. There's a question in the chat, Matthew, just a second ago, which is a good question to bring up. We didn't even talk about like where in a process would this type of message be good. So, yeah, this is a message that I would more so recommended that the prospect has been warmed up a bit. They've gotten a few messages from you at this point. This isn't when we've seen best results for messages like this, where you're going with a phone call and you're kind of laying out exactly what you want to talk about, what your company can do for them specifically. It's usually one you don't want to leave without the gates, because you're going to get lower response rates and you're going to end up souring people from the start instead of building relationships, sharing with them some whether you're doing a message like the news jack message that we have in the scripts, or it's a message like the last one that's an article that you're sharing out, or you have an ebook that just came out you want to get them access to, whatever it might be. This is one that would be a bit further in the process. It's not one that I would recommend leading with.
Yeah, and I know that it is not just a cold message that Carl is sending out. And he does reference it in the first paragraph. We've been crossing paths on LinkedIn for the past couple of months. So that if that was your first message and you haven't been reaching out and talking to them via LinkedIn for a few months, then it would be weird and awkward. And not only is it kind of weird and awkward for you to receive this message right off the bat. So, making reference that this is not the first time we're connecting, that I'm reaching out to you, helps in that matter. And sorry. Anything else to add?
No, I think we're good to go on to the next one.
Okay, cool. Okay, we'll just give you a few moments to read it. It's pretty short and sweet. Okay, Pat, I went first last time, so why don't you give this one a shot?
All right, sounds good. Okay, so this is Dear Terry. Okay, yeah, got this one. So the first thing here, the phrase "thank you for being engaged with our connection" was not my favorite intro there. If you're sending this out to a big group, and it to me, "thank you for being engaged with our connection" sounded a bit formal, unless, again, like I would talk to someone. So I would, if anything, I even like "thank you for being a connection" here better than "thank you for being engaged with our connection," or that phrase just didn't sit right with me. Let's go to a couple things that I do really like about this. Short and sweet, like you said. It's split up into short sentences as well. I always want to be wary and again, aware of what messages a person has received to this point, because, and this goes back to a bit of that, what's in it for me. This is would you be open to a discussion how either one of us can benefit from the service we provide? That's a bit vague to me. Now, the play here seems to be a bit more, let's do some network, and I might just add in a couple more descriptions or a bit more specific than how either one of us can benefit from the services we provide. The person on the other end might not be sure of the services you provide, and you also might want to make it a little more customized to what it is that they do. So another thing that I like about this, we talked about it earlier, I like giving a time frame. We've just seen much better results for any sort of call to action message like this, where you're going for a phone call, when you say, here is my schedule a bit, what works for you, and going from there. Rather than just saying something like, I'd love to get on the phone to discuss, essentially, the other way of doing it would be having that, would you be open to a discussion how either one of us can benefit from the service we provide? Let me know what time works for you, and we'll put something in the books. I'd rather give them a range and make it a bit simpler, and puts it into kind of context. So that's kind of the first, like my major thoughts there. Jamie, you got anything you want to add, or any other areas here? I might have something else that comes to me.
Yeah. So I wasn't sure exactly what you were saying about the date ranges. So were you saying, because I feel like that Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, though it is a range of dates, it's a little too broad.
Yeah. I agree with you there. I actually had another note here about that I liked having a date range, but maybe like tightening it up a bit. So good point.
Yeah, so because that, if you could just specify that down a bit, maybe just give one day or a couple of days, that would be good. And then your response to a date and time for you would be appreciated. Again, that just sounds a little, it reads a little funny. So you say, normally I'm free on Mondays from 10 to 4. Let me know what time works best for you. I could be flexible, and something like that. That's just, it reads a little better. It's a little more personable, a little more conversational. And I like what you did, because remember earlier I said using questions and question marks strategically can be very useful. And so I liked that you did ask the question, would you be open to a discussion? But again, you could, if I read that and I were just kind of just a prospect and I just wasn't in the mood for it, and I'm like, would I be open to a discussion? Like, I could just say no, I'm not. And so that, though it's good that you asked a question, if you can, being a little bit more specific, or being a little, making it pointed to a little more value of what's in it for them, why should they want to talk, will make it easier for them not to say no. Otherwise, I think the brevity of it is very good. It's short, sweet, simple, to the point. The overall format and structure is good. If you could just make a few tweaks of the words, I think that would be great. I think you'd get some good results. So.
Yeah, and one question here, Jamie, that we've had from a couple people is about using a web service like an auto scheduler instead of giving a date or time range. So you might have some thoughts here too, but I'll jump in real quick. And so it definitely can be done. Don't get me wrong there. And we've done it for a number of clients that prefer scheduling their appointments that way. The one area I do warn you on is we typically see lower results as far as book times. It seems to be a little less personal is, I guess, the reason that I can subscribe to it, but it definitely can be done. So the big thing is that I would recommend is, depending on how big a batch of people are getting this message for this certain date or time frame, if it can be done where you have the time and it's not like a huge list of people you're sending this message to at one time, and then I would recommend going with the more personal touch of like, here's kind of some dates for me. Otherwise, again, like I said, there's no issue I have. I'm not telling you can't do it with the auto schedule. We've done it with our company. We've done it for clients of ours in these campaigns. It can certainly be done. Just want to make sure that I mentioned this. And Rudiger was asking a question about what automatic scheduler you would recommend using. There's a bunch out there. A couple that we've used are Time Trade and Appointlet, but there's a million options out there.
Yeah, and I know Time Trade is a little bit more pricey, and Appointlet is pretty fairly inexpensive, and they're a new company, and that's how all of our welcome calls are done. So I'm sure you guys, if you've had your welcome call, you already know that. And both have different benefits. But those are the two that we use. But you can Google a bunch and figure out if either of those options don't work for you. Then there's a ton of other ones out there. And in addition to that, so again, what Pat said was I completely agree with. You can certainly do it. There's nothing that says don't do it. You do lose a bit of that personal touch. So a play could be is you can send out a message like this that say, hey, here's when I'm available. They respond with the time or whatever, and you're like, okay, great. Here's a link to my try and trade. Let's get this on the calendar. So maybe using that link in the response would could be another option you do, and it just creates more of a conversation and seems a little more personal. So it's not they're just getting this one message. Hey, here's what times are you free? Okay, now go to this scheduling software and do it yourself. Like you want to make them feel a little more special. So maybe keeping that out of the first initial message, and then when they respond, you could always send them the link to your time trade or appointment or whatever. So that's an option that you have. Pat, are you there?
I'm here. Yeah, I agree with everything there. So I'm ready. I'm ready when you are.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go to the next one. Oh, sorry, that went back. Okay, so we'll just take a moment and let you guys read this. Okay, so I hope if everyone hasn't had the option, just feel free to keep on reading, but I'm just going to begin talking. So first off, I think this is a pretty good message. The one thing I will have to say is it does seem a little long, though I think it does a great job of spacing out the paragraphs. Nothing is too long. Yeah, the third paragraph does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, which is a little longer than I would say a paragraph should have. But other than that, like it does a great job of formatting. But I think this could be condensed a bit. All of these questions you're asking are good, but we want to kind of stick to one. It just kind of seems all over the place. We want to stick to, if you can find one good, solid question to pose to your audience. If you can condense that into just one solid question, I think that would be beneficial. And then also, I think obviously you want them to check out the book, but I think the call to action is just a little lost because you mention it up here, but down here it just kind of ends. Like, I'd love to hear any thoughts or questions you may have. I think it could do a better job of, at the end, having a more compelling call to action and being a bit more specific there. And then I do love the use of the PS at the end. I think that is always a great way to throw those in there every once in a while to just kind of switch things up a bit. But I think it's a little bit bland. Just, please share this with any friends who are business owners, people in leadership positions in businesses, healthcare, finance, organizations, teachers, or coaches. Like, it's just a little bit wordy. And again, you're just listing the features. And obviously these aren't features. You're just making a list, and you're not showing any benefits. Just needs to be a little more compelling. Pat, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I have a couple notes. The one I will start with is kind of that last PS that you were just talking about. So I would, if there's all these different segments of your audience that you're going after, I would recommend having kind of a different one for each of these different items if they're all kind of connections. And, please share this with any of your friends in the industry who might find it helpful or something like that. We'll just kind of condense it a bit instead of listing off all those different items. So other than that, a couple of things, some small, some big. They copy and paste this link. I would just essentially say, check out the link below if it sounds interesting to you or anything like that. Even just check out the link below. To me, I had the same thought that you mentioned at the start, Jamie. It looks a bit long to me. It's tough because there's a lot of ways you can read a message like this. For me, there's a lot of copy in here that I really like what happens to leaders when stress rears its head, when the shit hits the fan. Do you have an intentional strategy to calm frazzled nerves? I think some of this copy is good here for sure. I just might see if there's some things here I can cut down. This sentence, for me, didn't do much. My message is this: if you learn how to lead well from within, you can lead well in the world. It seemed a little less like I would talk to someone. This is important. I'd like to highlight something like this. It's telling you exactly something from within. Here's what you're going to learn. You're going to learn these 4 key steps to effectively navigate and leverage stress into strength and success into significance. So, I might see if there's some of this, which I think is good copy. It's just more to me, I don't know if marketing speaks the right way, but almost like what would be on a book jacket. So I'd see if I might be able to cut down some of this and, get into something like this where you're telling here's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get these 4 key steps. And that's something I want to bring up there. Another thought I had was when I was reading this as someone put myself in the shoes of, okay, I just received this message. You mentioned this serious discount, and I was almost curious just to in my mind, I wanted to know what that discount was before I clicked. So one thing there. Another note is this, it all depends on what someone's seen to this point when you send this message, but having something in here about, if you cut down some of this copy maybe and had something that spoke to more why they should listen to you. What success, who have you helped, what have you helped people achieve? Why is this book something that they need to read and you're someone they need to pay attention to? So other than that, let's see, I think I had one more note here. Let me look at my list here. I kind of touched on this a bit earlier, but if you have these different targets and you have your connections fall into, business owners, people in healthcare, people in finance, organizations, coaches, teachers, and you have it segmented for those different personas, maybe having some bit of text that talks about them and something that they're struggling with. So even as something as simple as starting a sentence here, as a leader in the healthcare industry, you likely ... deal with XYZ that you can cover in the book. So that was one last thought I had that I think would be nice. But otherwise, like I said, there's a lot of copy in here that I really like. The way some of this is written is really compelling, but I just think it might be a lot for one message, and you might find ways to kind of cut down there.
Yeah, I agree. And you might discover that, hey, I could actually fit this in. This could be 2 separate messages or something like that. I know we're going to share the follow-up message that you sent, that you're sending right after this. But, if you can figure out a way to take this, because, Pat said there's a lot of good copy. There is a lot of great copy in here. So maybe if you decide that, this can actually be 2 messages, that could be beneficial as well. Let's move on to the next one, which, like I said, is the follow-up. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and get started. So I think the length of this message is what we should be aiming for your first message. So if you can condense that first message into something that looks like this, I think it'll be a lot more impactful. And overall, this is a good message, and what you say is really good. It's pretty much exactly like the last 3-ish paragraphs are pretty much word for word the exact same thing you just said from the first one. There's no like, as I mentioned before, we'll be talking about this. So for the follow-up, if you could make this, the follow-up message needs to be even shorter than this. So if you can take this and just kind of sum it up to, like, as I mentioned before, this is what you're going to get when you read this book, I think that would be great. And then also what Pat mentioned earlier about getting the book at the special discount. Well, what's the discount? Like, be a little bit more specific on the discount so that I know what I'm getting. And that'll help me create a sense of urgency, make me feel important, and make me compelled to want to click on the link and read your book. So, Pat, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you that like the length of this one, I think it is a good length for this type of message, even the first one. I agree with you on like again, bring up that special discount, like, is it 50% off, 75% off, whatever it is, being specific there. This is a really small thing, but I don't know, I come from a writing background. I would change, instead of repeating the title of the book here, since you have it up here and was in your last message, I would just say, the book takes you on a journey to discover, X, Y, Z. Let's see. I already talked about this type. This seems like a tagline to me, and less like something that I'm going to tell someone, or if I'm just in a conversation or talking with them. And another thing that Donna put in here that's a really great point is, pointing out your differentiators for this book versus any other book on leadership. Now, some of these I could say you have in here on your last message too, so since this is a follow-up, but keeping that in mind of, okay, if there's a lot of books on leadership, what separates you? And then just, again, back to that point I made in the last one about, something to kind of give me, like, why do I need to pay attention to you? Why do I need to pay attention to this book versus anything else out there? So, Donna said, like she said in her comments, why is it different than all the other books on leadership? If she got this email and it said that would interest her. So,
yeah, and I agree. And we haven't even mentioned differentiators or USPs today, but that definitely plays a part. It goes back to laying the foundation that I was talking about at the beginning, not only understanding your audience, but understanding why people should choose you over your competitors. And if you want more in-depth, that is what the first couple modules are for in the in C365. So if you haven't checked out any of like the Creating Brand Identity workbook, it explains how to discover those unique differentiators. But yeah, she's completely right about.
That's good. Sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, done. That was a great point made by Donna. So.
Yeah, and what you were just saying about, USPs, differentiators, some of that more information's in Module 1. It's important to know what type of messages, correspondence, marketing, advertising is your audience getting hit with continually, and looking at, competitors and seeing what they're doing and saying, what's different about me? What can I put in front of my audience that is they're not going to see, and their eyes are going to gloss over, and they're going to say, oh, I already know what this is about. I've gotten messaged about, whatever before. So always important items to keep in mind. So thanks for bringing that up.
And then, in addition, I just noticed this, that in the first paragraph you said, leading well from within is closing down soon. Well, what is soon? If you say, hey, it's closing down in 2 days, or we got 24 more hours, if you could be a little bit more urgent, that would make people want to click. Because if you just say soon could mean within a month, within a week. It just doesn't create any urgency to make them actually want to click right now. Because that's most of the time they're going to read the message once. They're not going to come back and read it. So you need to instill that urgency so that they actually click it now and not, oh, yeah, maybe I'll come back in 2 weeks, and then they forget about it entirely. So, yeah, I just noticed that in the first paragraph. Okay, Pat, anything else you have to say about these messages?
No, again, like I said in both Daniel's last couple messages, the first one, this follow-up, there's definitely some good copy in there. The first one, just the big thing is I'd say cutting down a bit, and then a number of the other things we mentioned here would be important to keep in mind. Yeah, and
I'm kind of interested in reading the book, so it did grab my attention. So good job on that. Okay, so next, pretty short and sweet. Okay, so right off the bat, the length of this message is great. I like it seems peppy, it seems energetic. However, it's just like, if you have 2 minutes, would you help me complete a survey about TV streaming? Like, why? He does nothing in here to explain what's in it for me, why I should want to do it. And so though it is short, I would say he does need to elaborate on it a bit to make it more interesting and compelling. And I think the first paragraph and the last paragraph, it just seems they're both just kind of a bit redundant. He's just saying the same thing over and over. 2 minutes, complete the survey. Thank you. It takes 2 minutes. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like, it's all like that. That is all he's saying, and there just needs to be more in there. Pat, what do you have to say?
Yeah, like you said, I like the length. It might be almost too short, if anything. Here, I do like having it called out in the message. At least the one time, the time frame it will take people to do it, because you don't want to give people something and then say, you want to let them know this will be a quick and painless process for this survey whenever we send out other survey messages. Like you mentioned, I think the biggest thing here that this could benefit from is the why. What's in it for me? Why should I take this survey about TV streaming? What am I going to get out of it? The other thing that I just wanted to bring up as an option is you could even potentially, gamify or whatever you want to call it, offer some sort of, goodie or some sort of bonus in return for them completing the survey. So depending on what you have to offer them as like a quick and easy thing that you could send them over email or whatever, I think that could also help your response rate here. But again, like Jamie said, the biggest thing for me is something to tie it and make it more personal and let them know why it's something for them. So that would be that'd be my suggestion there.
Yeah, and then what you said about making it as easy as possible is completely right. He does do a great job of saying, hey, it's quick, it's easy, 2 minutes. No sweat off your back. So, and that is super important in getting your prospect to agree to anything, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a survey, whether it's you want to watch this webinar. You got to make it as easy for them as possible. And then again, what Pat was saying about, hey, what the reason why, give them something, and it could be like a bonus for completing it. And this could also be a good idea, because I know some people do have longer surveys out there. And so if you do have a survey that might take 10 minutes or 15 minutes, we're not saying you can't have a longer survey, but if you do, then you really need to explain, hey, not only is the survey, this is why you should do it, but this is then what you're going to get after you receive it. So whether it's a free case study, a free ebook, even like offering a free strategy session or something. There's just a variety of things that you can do to incentivize people to want to take the survey. Because it is kind of, surveys are tough because obviously you want to know about me, you're interested in me, but like the results, how does that affect me? How are the results going to affect me? You need to explain that in order for people to want to take the survey. So, anything else to add, Pat?
No, I think I'm good here on this one. Like we said, it's pretty short and sweet.
Yeah. So, okay, I think this is our last one. And I'll give you guys all a second to read it. Okay, Pat, I'll let you take the reins on this one.
All right, yeah. So this is kind of the opposite of that last one, where that one we said short and sweet, need some more information. This one is much longer, and there's some good things in here, but there's some ways that I would tweak it. One thing when I read it, the way it's got these bullet points of sell one franchise, and it's everything's in big letters, and it just right away it just says Tom, turning your business into a franchise may be the smartest business move you ever make. It's very salesy, very direct. It seems like something I might get on a pamphlet in the mail or something, instead of utilizing some of those areas to talk about being more personal, and I would kind of tame back some of the salesiness. Something that I like just marketing-wise that you included here is you have a testimonial in here, but this route to me, the goal here of this message is you're trying to get people on the phone, right? Or you're trying to get them to email you, whatever it might be. So I would cut down a lot of this message, and based on who this persona, who this Tom is, is he in a certain type of industry? Is he a certain does he have a certain job title? Is he a certain level executive at a company? Like, how are you reaching out to them? How are you segmenting this persona, and have it more tailored where you're trying to engage Tom in a conversation, and that conversation being over the phone or email. So like if we go back to what we had, I think it was in like message 4. I can't remember which number it was in here, but there was one about trying to get someone on the phone call. Like, here's some success we've had. That was like 3 paragraphs, all sentence or 2 paragraphs, and this is just, to me, my first thought is it's very long and salesy, and I think you're getting a lot of people who might respond poorly to it because they're going to feel like this isn't personal to them at all based on just the way it goes straight into the pitch, like first sentence. Now, that there's copy in here that would be good at a certain point in your funnel, but it's almost like this is a sales page to me. So again, with the goal of getting them on the phone, you want to move that relationship to the next step. That's your goal here, is selling them to the next stage, the next step in the process. So again, like I would refocus on being interested in hearing more about them, what they're doing, what they've had success with, and then giving a little bit of information on your business, but not giving away the whole shebang, as the phrase is. So that's my thoughts when I look at this. My first feelings. Jamie, you got any other specifics you want to add here?
Yeah, and everything you had to say was great. One suggestion is, so this Chris Fisher, obviously Chris Fisher probably had a job before he was the owner of Shine Window Cleaning. So what you can do is find those other Chris Fishers on, not the ones who own Shine Window Cleaning, but find those Chris Fishers who worked at whatever job that they worked at before they owned their own franchise. And I know a little bit about the franchising business, but no expert by any means. But so if you could find those, upper management people at who's kind of hit the ceiling at their current job or their corporate job or whatever, and are looking for a bit more freedom and autonomy, then those are the people that you need to find, and then you need to call them out in this message. Be like, hey, I know, hey Chris, I know that you may be feeling like you hit the wall in your current job and you're looking at what to do next. Well, I'd love to sit down and talk to you about the different options that you have. And then just go from there. That's one play. You certainly don't have to do it that way. That's just one play that you can do it. And then from there, I would say at the end, give me a call at 555 or email me at inner email. You don't ever really want to leave it up to them, because now it's up to them to either email you or call you. And what is the likelihood of that? So instead of, hey, give me a call, you need to be more direct about, let's set up a time to talk. Here's when I'm available. What works for you? What number should I call you at? So I think that would help a lot.
I definitely like what you said there, Jamie, that I just wanted to highlight again is what you said about looking at this Chris Fisher, for instance, and saying okay, what was he and what type of people can I target like that? I did just want to mention here that there are some things in here that I really, really do like for another type of message or another place. One spot that, some of this copy could work really well at, with some tweaks about the types of people you work with, the types of people who, Chris Fisher is, for instance, before he got into this business, is, either on your profile, there's some tweaks you could make, but, a lot of this is very specific information. You're talking about the amount of clients, the success that one of these clients had, the time frame to get it done in. You have all this information up here that, on a sales page or even kind of repurposing some of this copy for your profile could definitely work. But one other point I was going to bring up again that we were talking about, it might have been the last message or maybe the one before it, is that importance of knowing your persona, knowing your audience, and the type of messaging they get hit with. And, this is a message that, people get a lot. They get something like this, and it often ends up they're going to end up marking it as spam or something if you're not someone that they are already familiar with enough and they've already even talked to you. Because this is being that entry into the call, to me, seems a bit forward. And again, there's places where this type of copy can work great, but you got to keep in mind that stage selling of, what stage in the process are people to get something that's very, very direct like this.
Yeah. Everything that you said. Yeah. Well put. Okay. I don't think I have anything else to add there. So we can move on. Is this, so I think, yeah, that was it. I know, Pat, did some people submit their messages late? Did you have them?
Yeah, I got a couple messages. Want to hit one question real quick, so we got enough time to hit a couple more. Yeah. So Taylor was asking earlier, what do you both think about communication strategy with the question? If it said, are you satisfied with your lead generation results? Are you open to a short telephone conversation? How we might be able to increase your lead generation results?
I think having a question in there is always great. Sorry, I know I saw that. I need to read it one more time just to make sure. Asking questions is a great way, even if they're not one that you necessarily need an answer to. It's just a great way for them to get thinking in a different way, and it just and also a good way to tap into their emotions. Like, hey, are you satisfied with your lead generation results? Hey, let me think about that for a second. Actually, no, I'm not, and they make me feel like crap. So I don't want to be unsatisfied anymore. So I think posing strategically placed questions is great. And it's a great idea to include those in your messages.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't recommend going like overboard. Sometimes I see messages where there's a list of like 55 questions in a row, it seems like. But, having, like you said, strategically placed, and as long as it's to me, the bigger thing is it specific and is an issue that you're pretty certain that this type of persona is struggling with just based on, past clients or past prospects or past leads you've dealt with. So yeah, again, definitely like having a question. Just I always recommend not going overboard and having too many.
Yeah. Okay. Did we have any other questions in the chat?
Most of the other questions that weren't script reviews, I got answered. If not, feel free to write in to me now. But I guess, Jimmy, I just have these on like a notepad. So I'm going to share my screen though, so we can all read them. And give me 1 second here. I think you might need to make me the presenter so I can do that.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So let's show my screen here. All right, so apologize for formatting, ladies and gentlemen, but yeah, these were just sent in during the call. So yeah, we'll take a second to read this because this is, Jamie and I haven't had a chance to look at it yet either, so just give us a minute here. Okay. So I'll kick things off. Again, this is another one that's a very, very direct message. And the big thing, again, I might sound like a broken record, but it's just important is that you want to make sure you've warmed up your audience enough so that they are, this isn't coming out of the blue. So this would not be a message I recommend for the first message. You'll probably have some people remove you as a connection if that's the case. Things I really like here, very specific. You're laying out for them, here's the last 6 months of these campaigns I've run, and this is the results that one of these orthodontists had. I'm not sure if you can. I'd like to have some sort of testimonial within a message like this, but again, this is if we're saying we're going to run this very direct message. So another thing that I can go either way on. Again, it's copywriting is a world where there's a million ways to do it. Personally, this I believe I can help. I'm not sure if I'm sold on it. I like the intro. It's kind of like this question that we're just talking about. If you're frustrated with your advertising results, but my biggest thing is just a message like this. You really have to have kind of laid the groundwork as far as what you've been sending these people beforehand, because this is one that's going to be pretty apparent one way or the other. Like you're going to have a couple people. You're going to have some people who are really interested in this because of specifically these two paragraphs is what I would look to. I wonder if there's multiple different areas. I'm just looking for some other ways that I might tweet this. This is also a good line here, the range of $50 to $100 per lead. You mentioned there, the big thing is, actually now that I'm reading even the end, the big thing is the call to action at the end here that I think could use the most work. If you'd be interested in learning more, please let me know and I can send over some important information about the campaign in detail. The big thing, I guess, is how do you typically sell? If it's over the phone, I'd be going for what we talked about earlier with trying to get people, telling them some options that you have available for calls, or trying to get them to book a strategy session, whatever it might be. I just go to something where if you have a ebook or something people can sign up for, having a link to it there. Any other sorts of marketing materials that they can just get directly, in exchange for like their email address or something, is something that that session's the biggest area that I think needs a bit of tweaking here.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said was good. And yeah, I think definitely with the end, the call to action needs to be something greater than it is. So, and it leaves it too much in the hands of the prospect. So if you're interested, let me know. You don't want that. Like you need to make it as easy for them. They shouldn't have to lift a dime or lift a finger, except maybe like click a button or, just say a response. Then you handle it from there. As far as the beginning of the message, I think I like what you're trying to do. I just think it doesn't make it isn't as impactful as I think it could be. So something like, hey, if you're frustrated with your advertising results, then you can take that question from below. Ask yourself, what would 34 new braces, 34 new leads every month do for your business? So that's you can pose that question right up front to get them thinking, creating that mindset where they're thinking, oh yeah, I am kind of frustrated. Oh yeah, what if I had 34 new leads? Oh my God, that's more money, ka-ching. So they're thinking about that right away. And then in the second paragraph, I think you do a good job of being specific. But I'm wondering, and I haven't been to the orthodontist in 20 years, so I don't really know much about them. But if you were to tell an orthodontist, hey, I use very specific Google AdWords campaign, are they going to know what that is? So maybe it, that goes back to not being too technical or jargony. If it turns out that, oh yeah, most orthodontics know about Google AdWords, keep it in there. But if you think that might be a little bit above their head, maybe just say, instead of using some proprietary lead gen techniques or something like that, make it a little more general, even though we say get specific as possible. Once it gets over their head, you just kind of want to take it back a little bit and make it as easy for them to understand as possible. So again, I don't know orthodontists, so I'm not sure. But if that's the case, you might want to consider leaving the Google AdWords out of it, or tweaking it a little bit so it makes a little more sense to the general.
I really liked your idea about maybe moving this sentence up, and then if that's the case, I would also have like a little bit of a better transition into kind of your sales copy, even if it's something as simple as like, hey, Greg, we've been crossing paths here the last couple months on LinkedIn. I noticed you're an orthodontist, and I've been working on some interesting new campaigns that have been generating $50 to $100 per lead for some of my clients, and that what would 34 new braces and Invisalign leads every month do for your business, and then kind of get into some of the more of this specifics. But maybe having like some way to kind of transition it at the start about like giving them that feeling that it's not just straight into the sales pitch. You have that like kind of sentence, even if, like I said, if it's as simple as, we've been crossing paths the last couple months and wanted to tell you about some exciting new things I've been working on that you might find interesting, and then kind of get into the specifics of like this lead cost range, how well this specific campaign is going. If you can use the information of the specific orthodontist, I think it'll be more compelling to your audience because there's a name tying it to it rather than just more general. But I really like Jamie's idea of maybe using this sentence higher up rather than this starting sentence.
Yeah, and then also what you can do, and like I said, I don't know much about how much does a normal lead for an orthodontist cost. So if you can say that that one orthodontist got 204 new leads at 51 per lead, well, what was it before that? Like how much were his leads costing before that? And if there's a big difference, make mention of that as well. Because that'll just, it's a little more compelling and exciting. Like, holy crap, he used to be paying $150 per lead. Now he's got it down to 56. So that could be an idea that you can include in there as well.
Jamie, as a side note, I'm starting to get nervous. You said that you don't know much about orthodontics. You just convinced me last week that you were going to put braces on me for a pretty nice price, and now you got me nervous.
Well, I know.
You dabble in orthodontics.
I dabble.
It's a hobby.
I consider myself an expert, but I definitely feel comfortable and putting braces on you, and I don't believe you've ever had braces. I've at least had braces, so.
So you know more about the braces process than me. You're correct.
Yeah. So I think I definitely, and I could always YouTube it if I get.
There you go. Exactly. All right. So there's a couple messages here that Raj sent in, and we're going to look at this first. The follow-up message that he sends people after a lead joins his group on LinkedIn. So we'll give you a couple minutes here to read through and let Jamie and myself read through it as well. All right, Jamie, you want to kick it off? And there might be a couple of formatting issues. It kind of came through in a big item, and I think I got most of it fixed. But I'll let you kind of kick things off here, and then I'll hop in.
So right off the bat, I think I do like how it's set up. It's set up a little differently than I normally would. However, I just got a bit confused of all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's the link to the article. You need to do, I think this message could do a little bit better of introducing the article and what you're trying to explain, because I was just a bit confused. Overall, I wasn't sure what the point of the message is. And remember, we have to go back and explain why you're reaching out, and and you want to do that as soon as possible, as close to the top of the beginning of the message as possible. So, so I think right off the bat that is something that needs to be changed. But I do like the length of it, the style of it, and I like that you asked a question. And I just want to make sure that oh, okay, sorry. I was going on a tangent, and then I realized that the article is in the group. Okay, so you're not sending them to a completely third-party source. You're sending them to the group. Okay, sorry for that. But I guess I read through it, and I didn't completely understand. So I think the message could do a little better job of explaining that. Sorry, that was a bit of a rant. I'll let you take over.
No, I got caught up at the same thing too, because it starts off it's saying, it's saying thanks for joining the community, and like here's like a description of the key theme of our group, and then it says like the first time I hear an article mentioned is where it just says here's the link to the article link. So I think what I would recommend probably is to kind of cut down some of this theme item and more so stick to, as you may have it depends on, first of all, what the name of the group is. If that's going to make it clear to my audience what this group's about, it should, hopefully. But I'd probably get more to, you can have a mention of the group as a whole, but more so what this article's about. Because I was running the same thing. I reread these lines like 4 or 5 times, and then when it said, here's the link to the article, I was like, oh, I didn't know there was an article. I thought we were talking about the themes of this group. So I had that same thought. This I think this is, again, it depends on your audience always and your style, but to me saying the full name here is a bit formal. I would probably just say, this is, and then my full name is Patrick Hensler. I wouldn't write this is Patrick Hensler. I just write, hey Bob, this is Pat, founder of XYZ Group, and go from there. The other thing, so when we get to after this link to the article, I would love to hear from you. What is the biggest lesson you learned from this article? I think, again, it's kind of tough to give a full review of this because a lot of it is kind of more templated and vague. But having a question like this, I'm not against. I just would like it to be a little more specific. So, I might just say, like, here's the link to the article if you want to check it out. Looking forward to, hope to hear back from you on, the biggest lesson you learned from XYZ. So, again, I think the biggest thing here that needs to be reworked is that some of this theme group, because when I first was reading it, I thought it was going to be, thanks for joining the group. Here's some of the major themes we hit. Hope you can, go in and make a post on this sometime. Love to hear your thoughts. And then I got to here's the link to the article part, and I was kind of thrown for a loop. So that's the biggest, the big item that I'm looking at there. And again, some of it's kind of tough to say because this is in templated form and not, having like the specific group name or, the specific colleague name here. So I'm not sure. I'm assuming this is referring to the person who wrote the article. But those are just a couple other things that came to mind for me when I was reading this.
And so is this message being sent as a welcome message, like the automatic message once they join the group, or do you know if Raj is sending it out separately?
Raj, if you could write that in, if this is the one that goes straight from LinkedIn to your group members when they join, or if this is one that is going to be like a personal message after someone joins your group that they're sent.
Because if it was the automatic message that people get when you join the group, I think opening by, hi, Bob, this is Raj, and I would say Raj, not your whole name, unless you felt like you needed to say your whole name. Hey, Raj, hey, Bob, this is Raj from XYZ Group. Thanks for joining. And you can kind of go into a little bit, as you've noticed, this is our personal productivity, and a little bit about that. I think that would be a great play for one of those automated welcome messages that people get when you join the group. And then the second part that talks about linking to the article, that would be a separate message in itself by, hey, we've had some great discussions in this group. So-and-so recently put this. Here's the link. Check it out. Let us know what you think. Something like that would be better. So,
yeah, it sounds like what Raj was saying in the chat is that it was for like a one-to-one.
Okay.
Specific message.
So I think,
it's a good point to bring up that you had about the welcome message either way.
Yeah. So you can use the first part of that message. I think if you could use that for the automated message that people get when they join, I think that would be a good play. But you don't have to do it like that. That's just my 2 thoughts. Okay, yeah, we're kind of running near the end of things. So, Pat, did you have anything else to add?
No, I think the major thing, I liked your idea here of like using some more of this copy about the theme of the group and then focusing specifically on the type of article or this resource that you're sending them to in the group here would be the best play.
Cool.
Okay. All right, so let's go on here. So this is a follow-up message that Raj sends to his lead after he talks to them on a sales call. Let me fix up some of this formatting here and give you all a second to read this over.
Okay, so right off the bat, I want to point out that there are two call to actions. One is you want them to reply. You want them to reply so that they can get started, and then you also want them to watch a video. Now, I'm not saying you can never have two call to actions, but you run the risk of when you put two call to actions that one or both are not going to be taken, or your prospects are going to take those call to actions and use them. So if you want people to watch the video, send a message about watching the video. If you want them to get on another call, then send a message about getting on a call. And it's completely up to you. If the video is just like as an added bonus, then that's fine. But those are just some things you need to take into consideration when you're sending out these messages. Another thing that strikes me right off the bat is if you're using the same, according to my colleague, whatever, if you're using that same paragraph in multiple messages, it just sounds a bit redundant. So I would refrain if you're using it for the group message, don't use it again in this message when you're requesting a phone call. So yeah, those are my two things I see right off the bat. And I'm not sure if I enjoy, or if I really like the see my PS below. You can just say, hey, at the end of this message, I have a video for you to watch if you're interested in. That might just be me personally. I wouldn't do that, but I don't know. Pat, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought the same thing about that too, but it stems to your first point, which I think is the most crucial here, is you have two calls to action in this message. So a couple other things. This kind of seems impersonal to me to start again with this is Rogerio. I would just say, hi, Bob. It was a pleasure getting to know you and better understand your business goals on our call, and then getting into your other items here. So the other thing, too, that when I look at someone who has a follow-up message like this after a phone call, whether they send it on email, LinkedIn, wherever, is that, it sounds like, in this circumstance, this template, I'm just wondering if the close was done on that phone call, because it's kind of a soft close here, even like just reply to this email with a simple "I'm ready," so we can get started. And I guess I'd have to know more about the sales process and the way you're selling this in stages, because the reason is if you're not closing on the call, then I think a better play for something like this is, if you're trying to stay in touch with them, is having a message like you started with here, like having this video that's going to help them. Okay, so Roger's saying there's no close in the call. So I personally think that I would recommend trying to have that close in the call. And can
I interrupt here for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
And by a close, I think you want to just elaborate. The close doesn't have to be, okay, I signed the client. The close can just be the next step. Like before you end the call, if you're going to say, hey, I'm going to follow up by message, by either email or LinkedIn message, you need to state that on the call. So prior to sending out any messages after you've had this call, on the call, you still need to discuss what next steps are being taken. So if you haven't closed, or you're not going to close, or whatever, it's important that on the call say, hey, I'm going to follow up with you via email or LinkedIn message. I got a video for you. I think you'll really like it. So that might be a better play here. And then when you are messaging them, be like, hey, Bob, here's the video that I was talking about. Explain why, again, explain the benefits, why they should care, blah, blah, blah. And just leave it as send that video, and then if you're still trying to get them on a call, maybe follow up with them afterwards and say, hey, did you watch the video? Let's jump on another call. I'd love to talk to you about it, or something like that. You can combine them into one if you want, but it just goes back to saying, hey, two calls to action. Hey, watch this video, and then set up a call with me. I think that could be, you'd be better off separating that into two separate messages.
For sure, and yeah, based on that video, like tying into the services you offer, it's definitely important. Yeah, like Jamie mentioned when I was referring to close, it's that next step. So if your first call you have with someone is a more like getting to know you call, and that's not the call, and for you, it's that in your sales sequence, that's not the way you're going to close them, and you're saying, okay, I get them on another call that's like a strategy session, or I'm doing like a campaign plan, or whatever it might be, is at the end of that call, try that first call, that next step should be set pretty much in stone. So if you're scheduling another call, say like, oh, I'm open, how's your schedule look next Thursday and Friday? I'd love to hop on and talk about some of these options that we have, and how I think I can help you with your key goal of personal productivity. I've had a lot of success. I've had a lot of clients that have success with this, and let's get something on the calendar now. So, that could be a close, or like Jamie said, it's going to be, if it's a follow-up over email with a video like this, then, keep that video, start out with that, because that's where you're going to want to get them, and then, you can either in that same message or in a reply have some details about the option, but, there should always be some sort of close to a next step. So that you're able to follow through with that. So let's see here.
Or you can combine, like at the end of the call, say, hey, let's set up the next call. What works for you next week? Okay, 11, great. We got you at 11 on Thursday. In the meantime, I'm going to send you a video that I think you'd like. And then, like you said, then you need to make sure you follow up with them and send them the video. And so that way, in the meantime, while they're waiting for that call, they have that video to watch. So that's another way you can do it as well. But the important thing is you should have expectations set prior to ending the call and prior to sending a message like this. So.
Yeah, and like I said, like a close like this, or a call to action like this, even it's a very soft close, and it's okay if the scope, if the purpose of this message is like, okay, I'm going to stay in front of them, I'm going to give them this video where that's the focus, the video, and then at the end I kind of have that. You want to make it more enticing, compelling to them, especially if you're not doing a hard close on that phone call. But it seems like for this template, at least, because that's what we're going off of, like whenever you're ready, it seems like their objection is going to be time or money, which is usually the two objections in a sales call. And making sure you have scripted out for yourself on those calls when you're going into your close for the sale, I mean, in this circumstance, that you have scripted out for yourself those responses to any objections you've been hearing, so that when we talk to people about the ways they approach their sales calls, and even internally in our team, not every word of the entire call has to be scripted. Usually an outline can do for certain areas, but when you get to those objections, doing some exercises of what are these common objections I'm hearing, and writing out either by hand or typing up on your computer how you would respond to that will immensely help you. And you can. There's nothing wrong with having a pitch to your item and then staying in front of people, but then keeping them warm by keeping them sharing content like this video you have here in this example. So if it's all soft closes, I just would, in certain areas in the stages of your process, try out some ones that when you're on the phone with someone, test out a more hard close where you're talking about, and I don't mean hard close like being aggressive and pushy. I just mean more so laying out, here's exactly what I've helped people achieve. Here's what I think would be a good plan for you, and going through that on a call. Most people have a couple stages to their calls. There's obviously that getting to know you phase, and then either strategy sessions, consultations. People go straight to, let me show you the options we have, And there's a million different ways to do that. And that it's not the focus of this call today, but it seems like for this example, that's kind of what I would recommend. And I think Jamie kind of hit the nail on the head when she was talking about stay slow. What's the next step? And let me follow up that way. So if it is, you talk about, I'll follow up with you over email. I got a great video you should check out. I think it's going to help you with some items. And then you either have a response to that, or at the bottom of that you have some more information about what you offer. That'll help you more, because to me this seems vague, and it can depend on what you talked about on the call. Of course, there's a million factors at play, but yeah, that's what I see when I'm reading this message here.
And I'll just add one more note, because we're just about running out of time. But if you choose to follow up this way, I think because you've already had a one-on-one conversation, I think there's things you need to do to the script to talk specifically about what you guys discussed on the call. Not just about personal productivity, but like what are the exact areas where this person is getting stuck, and calling that out in the message. Because otherwise it does just kind of seem a little too vague and not personal. And especially if you've already talked to this person on the phone, they're going to be like, oh, this is just the standard reply he sends. So, and that also goes back to removing the first line, hey, this is Rogerio Amado. Like, yeah, Raj, I know you. You've talked. Like, and Raj, I've actually met you in person, and you're a very personable, chatty guy. So I think that comes through a little bit on your messages, but when I met you and then I read, like, if this was the first line I heard from you, I'd be like, okay, Raj, yeah, I know who you are. So anytime you've spoken on the phone with someone, it's really hard to template a message like this, because you want to get as specific as possible. But I think you can have like an outline, but like it needs to get a bit more personal if you're actually sending this to people. So, okay. Pat, do we have any other questions or anything else you would want to add on anything we've discussed today?
One thing I just wanted to follow up on, you might have already had this kind of in your notes for closing, is that we will, like you mentioned at the start of the call, usually at the most give us 24 hours to make sure the videos all rendered and everything, but we'll be putting the replay of this onto the website under the bonuses section. There's a bonus that's listed for the script writing bootcamp. We'll put the replay there, and like Jamie also mentioned, we don't have a date right now for you, so just keep an eye out. It'll probably be in the next 3-4 months. We're going to be doing another script writing bootcamp, because you might have some messages that you have planned for these 3 months, but in your editorial calendar you're looking at months 4 to 6 out, and have some new scripts that you want us to go through. So that'll be there. One final item is that we do have another bonus call coming up next Tuesday. It is on how to grow your connections database using an automated Twitter strategy. Really excited about that. Myself and Steph Kelly on our team are going to be presenting on it, and really excited with some of the information that we're going to be sharing there about this strategy. I think you'll all get a lot out of that. And if you haven't yet, you can sign up. Again, under the bonuses section, there's a bonus listed for that, and it should take you to a page to where you can register for it and make sure you're on that call as well.
Okay. Yep. Awesome. Thanks for that. Okay. So, yeah, we're just about out of time. So if you guys have any further questions, you can reach us in the Facebook group. That's pretty much the best way to ask any sort of campaign, software, automated related message. So make sure you hit us up in the Facebook group. And it was lovely talking to you today. Pat, thanks again for being here and doing this with me. And for the rest of you, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone.